Hello everyone. In my previous video, I predicted that the 2020 United States election will be an electoral tie. Today I'd like to go over what will happen in the case of that tie and who will most likely be elected president and vice president. In that previous video, I mentioned that there was a possibility for a Biden-Pence administration, given that the House of Representatives could vote for Joe Biden and the Senate would vote for Mike Pence. However, I was unaware that the current Congress does not actually vote. It's actually the elected Congress, meaning that whoever wins the election in 2020 in the House and the Senate, those seats, those people will actually vote for the incoming President of the United States and Vice President. And so what I've done here in this video, I'm looking up the current House of Representatives, and I wanted to determine how the vote would go if it went with the current House and the current Senate, and then I want to go over what I think will happen in the next administration, and then who's most likely to be elected president in the electoral tie. So if we have an electoral tie, it goes to the House of Representatives. Each state does not have every single House of Representatives voting. Instead, each state votes as a block, and that becomes one vote. In other words, it's kind of like the Senate where you have two seats, except that it's only one. And so California, all of its representatives will vote in block to cast one vote toward the president. And so California gets one vote, North Dakota gets one vote, Hawaii gets one vote. Each state, an actual state, gets one vote. And so District of Columbia does not vote in this case. So what I'm doing here is looking up, for example, Alabama, we count the R's versus the D's, and majority Republican, their bloc would definitely vote Republican. And then you look at something more interesting like Arizona. I predicted in my video that Arizona will lean red and will most likely go toward Trump electorally. However, if you look at the current House of Representatives allocation, you count the D's, this is actually Democrat majority as of now. There's more Democrats than Republicans in congressional district, meaning with the current vote, it would end up voting for Biden. And so what I did was I went through every single state, I did this, and we ended up here. And so this is the current spread. Iowa has majority Democrat, Arizona has majority Democrat, Pennsylvania has exactly the same number. It's exactly split. And so if it voted as a body as it is, if the current administration voted in an electoral tie, you count the states 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 23. So 23 states would vote blue, and 27 states would vote Republican, and therefore Donald Trump would win in the case of an electoral tie, despite the fact that he could lose the popular vote. If it became an electoral vote tie, this would be the spread majority red. And so what does this mean? This means that if Joe Biden were to win in an electoral vote with the new administration, it would mean some states would have to flip. He would have to, or I should say the states would have to hold House of Representatives majority as they are in the blue states, and then there'd have to be a swing to the blue, like a blue wave. And so Iowa could not flip, Arizona could not flip. Pennsylvania, being a tie, the way that it works is you just keep voting until until 26 states out of the 50 vote for the next president. And so with Pennsylvania, I actually think, given that this will likely switch and flip over to Joe Biden in the popular vote, and therefore the electoral vote for that state, I think, even though it's tied, I think there's a good chance that some district will flip, and there'll be a majority House of blue. Even so, this is not enough. There needs to be two more in order to get 26, because right here there's only 24. 24 blue and 26 red. This would still result in Donald Trump winning the election, the contingent election. And so I started looking through here, and I started figuring out, would Ohio potentially flip? And I want you to see there's a lot of R's in Ohio because of gerrymandering and among other things. And there's much less D's. It's extremely unlikely Ohio will gain Democrat majority no matter what happens, even in a blue wave. As it turns out, the states most likely to flip would be Wisconsin and Florida, which are also the two biggest swing states in 2020 for the popular vote cast toward 270. But if we look at the actual electoral districts for House of Representatives, These are the two most likely to flip. They would both have to become blue as far as the House of Representatives. In an electoral tie, now in this circumstance, they would vote for Joe Biden over Donald Trump. However, if my prediction is correct and Wisconsin and Florida both go toward Trump in the popular vote, or for that state, in other words, for the electoral allocation, I don't see their districts flipping. I see it's more likely it'll end up like this. I think Pennsylvania will flip. Michigan already is blue. I think it'll stay blue, and I think it's going to flip for the electoral vote, like I said in my last video. This is most likely the case. This might even flip. As far as House, we don't know. This might flip. We don't know. Others won't flip, like Texas, California. They're too unlikely. And so if this is the case now, this just goes to show that I think Donald Trump, in an electoral tie, will be elected the next president. There would have to be such a blue wave, and if that much of a blue wave happened in the House, frankly, this much of a blue wave would happen in the first election, and Joe Biden will hit 270 anyway. So in an electoral tie, which I think is going to happen most likely, we're going to actually see Donald Trump get more votes here in the House if it's a split. Now in the Senate, as everybody knows, the Senate is Republican controlled. If it stays Republican controlled, the senators, it's just one vote per senator for vice president, and so the senators will, if it stayed as it is, will vote for Mike Pence. It's all to be determined in 2020. If the Senate flips, then we might be looking at a Trump slash whoever, whichever woman that Joe Biden picks for his VP could potentially be Donald Trump's VP, which would be fascinating to me. But the Senate flipping, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's possible, given how unpopular Mitch McConnell's actions have been in holding up the Senate, that it will flip and yet still have an electoral tie and then still have Trump be the next president and then have the vice president be Joe Biden's pick for vice president. That's possible, or it'll be Trump Pence. It's extremely unlikely in an electoral split that Joe Biden will be the next president from the House. It's extremely unlikely. If you crunch the numbers, if you look here, the likelihood is very unlikely. If that happened, Joe Biden would win outright. If this was, as you can see, let's change modes here in our brain. Now we're looking at what the map's, basically designed for electoral votes. Joe Biden would win anyway. Given this, this is this one's going to flip. Going back to my other map of what I think is going to happen. Oh, that's why. Oh no, that's right. This was blue. I think it will flip, even though it's going to be very close. There you go. This is what I predict, my final prediction. This might happen. This actually is very possible. The three biggest swing districts right now are this, this, and this. And by district, I mean state, or district in Maine. This I think is pretty much in stone. I actually think I would bet on this. Not knowing about these three, these are like the biggest things to watch. And these are where Joe Biden and Donald Trump, from their points of view, should both put their attention, is on this, this, and this, because they're extremely tied right now. But I think it's going to end up like that. And I don't know why, I think this is going to happen. And so I think this is what's going to happen. And this is why we're talking about this. So we'll see.